My name is Mehraj Hudani. This is my 2008 BMW E90 M3, and this is my story for my build. For a living, I have a couple businesses, some real estate, basically whatever makes me $1 to pay for the gas for that car. I have been into cars for a very long time, as far as I can remember. My grandfather gave me a Hot Wheels toy set when I was little. My enjoyment was not the cars so much as throwing them across the floor to see how fast they could go. And ever since then, I'm just addicted to cars and trying to go fast. This E90 M3 was actually the first BMW I ever purchased. BMWs and what got me into BMWs, man, that's a very interesting question. I used to have a E30 M3 poster in my teens on my wall. I mean, I love them from even back then. And there was a time when I probably couldn't afford one, and I was lucky and blessed enough to get to a position where I could, and that was it. There was no asking questions, there was no competition. I bought my first BMW. So the search for this E90 M3 was, I actually didn't even know about the BMW. All joking aside, I was actually shopping a Z06. And I was at that dealership, and the salesman told me about a new BMW product line that had come out where BMW had put a V8 into a 4-door for the very first time. My wife had been harping on me about not getting a 2-door because we were expecting our first child. So I thought, well, why not? Let's go look at it. I drove it, and I couldn't get the smile off my face, and I think by then my wife realized if she didn't let me buy it, I was going to buy it anyways. The very first day I bought this car, there's a small winding road. I have no clue why the salesperson at BMW, I hope he doesn't see this, gave me the keys to let me drive the car by myself, but it was not this car, thankfully, but I put that car through the paces. I mean, I was taking corners, I was taking curves. This was a 4-door that handled like, a race car, really. So the easiest way I can answer that question is I couldn't get the smile off my face. I didn't want to give the keys back. I thought about going Grand Theft Auto and keeping it, but I had to eventually buy one. The options and everything, I got lucky. The color is something that I liked. The car was on the lot. They didn't have to order it. It was just meant to be. So after buying the car, the delivery was pretty simple. The car was there. It was available. After signing my soul away to the devil and signing the contract for the car, the only thing I can tell you is I didn't want to go home. I just kept driving the car and driving the car and driving the car. Unfortunately, as you know, there was a break-in period. And I think I might have not broken it in exactly right, but it was a challenge to not rev that car. And that was my delivery process. What made me decide to modify the car, that's a very interesting question. It was never meant to be modified to this extent. It didn't initially turn out that way. I was happy with the car as is. I was doing events. I was doing autocrosses with the local BMW chapter. I wanted a little bit more of an aggressive look, so it started with rims. It kind of then turned into the exhaust. Then Active Autowerke out of Florida came out with one of the first supercharger kits for the car. So I was lucky enough to have that installed on the car. I actually took this car in for an oil change to a local shop, which I won't name. I got a phone call the next day after he was supposed to change the oil telling me that the car had misfired while he was driving it back to the shop from his house. I don't know how that works. So at that point, there were scorch marks in my cylinders, some pistons had been melted, and Active was kind enough to help me out at that point because I was stuck. I didn't know what to do. So the build itself started by them taking the block, wanting to make it drivable for me again. We started talking about sleeving it. Then it turned into going from the HKS that they supply into a Roadtrek supercharger. And then I asked them probably the one thing that was the wrong thing for me to ask, but the one thing that they probably loved hearing: how can we make this faster? How can we make this better? We ended up with the Vortec YSI supercharger in there. We unfortunately and fortunately had to do a lot of custom parts. Sometimes they would work, sometimes they had to be tinkered with, but Active allowed this to take a life of its own into the build that it is now. The modifications that have been done to this car are top secret. If I told you guys, I don't know if you'd be able to survive this interview. However, Vorsteiner put the whole Vorsteiner kit on there when it comes to the look of the car. It's got a Vorsteiner front bumper, Vorsteiner rear diffuser, Vorsteiner rear trunk. It's got an Arkham hood. As you can see, the Arkham hood has been tinkered with a little bit. It's now what I call my mosquito bump, just to be able to safeguard the supercharger a little bit. The supercharger was bigger, and we got it in as low as we could. So we had to put something in place to just kind of make a covering on there. It's got a bunch of different shoes when it comes to rims. Right now, it's basically got Apex rims on there. It's got some Nittos, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Just to be able to get a little bit more grip on the ground. Interior mods, still for looks, I have, of course, your laser jammers, radar detector. It's got the OSS headlights that change colors. My kids love it. I can make pink headlights out of it. There's a lot of pink on the car as well. Carbon fiber has been blacked out. And of course, the Interlagos blue color that we bought the car for. When it comes to modifications under the car, it's got a full header back signature exhaust with cat delete from Active. It's connected to, of course, American Racing headers. It's got a Cyvex ECU that controls everything and tries to keep me on the up and up when I'm driving the car. It's got a Vortec YSI supercharger that has 3 maps at the moment. It is converted to E85 if I choose also 93 and racing fuel. The maps are 6 pounds of boost, 17 pounds of boost, 16 and change, but 17, and then 22 pounds of boost. It's got new rods, new pistons. I mean, everything on the car they touched. The cooling systems, radiators. There's nothing that hasn't kind of had something exchanged or modified in some way. The fuel systems have been changed. That's really all I can think of off the top of my head. When it comes to the different maps and the power of the car, at 6 pounds of boost, Active had done their dynos when they were building the car. It was around 520 to the wheels at 6 pounds. The middle level of boost was at 16 and change, 17 pounds of boost. It was running about 820, 825 to the wheels. We haven't had a chance to fully get into what it would do with a smaller pulley at a higher boost level, so we're gonna have to keep that secret for now. I can't give everything away, but we're pretty excited about next year to be able to put that smaller pulley into it and see what it does at a higher boost level. Future mods planned for this car, above and beyond increasing the boost. Aesthetically, I want to try to get some rims on the car, of course, something that's like a showroom. So we've been looking at BC Forged, DBS, just a different pair of shoes. I do want to widen the rear end. I don't know if I want to go with something that would be a bolt-on, or I've seen different people do different things. Some have your bolt-ons like a Liberty Walk kit. Some people have where they cut the rear fenders and mold just wider fender flares in the back. I haven't decided, but pretty much that's it. Just the engine, I don't want it to, I want to focus on the engine of the car and seeing what I can get out of that. When it comes to putting the car out there, just so people can see that your Camaros and your Mustangs are not the only muscle cars, as it were. Especially being in the South, everyone thinks if it's not American made, it can't go fast, and I just want everyone to know that German cars, especially BMWs, can compete with muscle cars. My relationship, and more importantly, the car's relationship with Active Autowerks in Miami, Florida, started above and beyond before I ever thought about trying to make this car go fast. When the car was first introduced, as probably any model year car, the parts and what's available, of course, kind of takes a little bit of time to get out there onto the market. So it started with a short throw shifter. It started with just trying to figure out what parts were available. I didn't know much about the car. I was more used to domestics, as it were, your Mustangs, your Camaros, things of that nature. The car before this was actually a Mustang. It was a V6, but it was a Mustang, so I wasn't sure what parts were available. Active was helpful in telling me what they had, what they were coming out with, what would be good on the car. For instance, they were the company that told me and explained to me about how if I were going to autocross the car, stiffness was very important. Do some version 3 KW coilovers. In this build, they had me switch to Öhlins just because of the power increase. But it started with that. It sort of developed into a lust from me into their supercharger system when that first came out, because of course, like anyone else, I wanted to go faster. I wanted to be able to go faster on a stock engine. I'm sure everyone does. From there, it turned into the full signature exhaust. And after the unfortunate incident where the car was down and the engine had some issues, Active was very helpful in stepping in and allowing me to have a plan moving forward. At that point, the car was nothing more than a potted plant. The engine was blown, it wouldn't move. I could park it in the front of my car and act like, you know, Beverly Hillbillies, and it's in front of a trailer, but it's never gonna move, or we could do something with it. They were the ones that researched what we could do. They were the ones that came up with a plan of action on the parts we could put into it, the trajectory the build would take. And every time they would do something and they would ask me if that was okay, and I would throw out the dreaded words of, can we do better? They never said no, but they also never told me they could do anything. They tempered my expectations with what was possible. I will tell you that I have probably talked to everybody at Active. It's a family company, so they made me feel like I was a part of the family in helping me all throughout the whole process of building this car. My feedback on the build now, especially when it comes to the supercharger, it, as you can see, does stand out. I get a lot of questions about it. A lot of people think that it's a turbo. I have to let them know that no, it's not a turbo, it is a supercharger. It pulls great. It has brought that smile back to my face from when I first bought the car. I didn't know that I would love or smile as much as when I first bought this car, because at some point the car becomes yours and that nostalgia kind of drifts away. But this supercharger setup has made me feel like a kid just throwing his Hot Wheels across the floor again. So I'd like to thank Active Auto Works, of course, for the car. I'd like to thank Milo, my Serbian make clean detailer. I'd like to thank Forrest here in Memphis, Tuned by Forrest, for tuning the car and putting up with me and tuning something that he wasn't used to, which was a Civex ECU. I'd like to really thank BMW INVASION for not only coming out and talking to me about my story and telling me that my car was slightly unique, but also for promoting BMW here in the Mid-South. I know it's a big thing on the coast, but it should become, and we hope it becomes, a big thing here in the Mid-South. I'd like to thank the production crew. I mean, you don't even know, thankfully, without them, I'd be hitting potholes, the car'd be upside down. I'm sure you guys have seen the water in the backdrop. I almost drove into the water. It looked refreshing. So I'd like to thank all the guys for just kind of helping me through it. As you can see, I'm really nervous on camera. I don't even know what to say.
Perfect on camera. One of the best interviewers, right?
I paid them. I paid them for that, so they have to say that.
What's good about it is that he's so humble. He's out here having fun with us. We're taking a lot of his time. And I said this on the vlog before, the behind the scenes vlog. If you haven't seen that, it's so good to do this with a good, humble person, and also my best friends. Best friends. He doesn't have no idea what BMWs are.
No idea. But you know what? He's already taught me enough.
Besides that, you know, anything else to say, Mehraj?
No, guys, thank you very much for looking at the story. Thank you for giving me a moment of your time. And
you gotta thank your wife too. Come on.
Oh no. But yes, thank you for my wife for letting me buy it, or this story would not be possible. Because without that stamp of approval, it probably wouldn't have happened.
Exactly. Awesome. Well, that's a wrap.
That's it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Mehraj.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it, guys.
Not a problem.
Thank you.
Awesome.
I just didn't want to mess it up.
No, it was.